Welcome to Poets and Poetry. I am Leona Welch, President Emeritus of the Texoma Poetry Society, a chartered chapter of the Poetry Society of Texas. The purpose of this program is to promote and encourage the writing of poetry and to kindle a finer appreciation of this creative language art with introductions to award-winning poets and their poetry. I am absolutely delighted to have as my guest poet, playwright, and professor, retired, Dr. Mary Cimarolli of Richardson. What a pleasure to have you in Texoma land. Thank you for coming.
Thank you very much. It was a beautiful drive.
Oh, and didn't have any rain, I suppose.
No.
Well, we could use the rain, but anyway, we'll do without the storms. Okay, let's begin. A native Texan from Hopkins County in East Texas and the small town of Arbala. I couldn't find this on any map.
No.
Where exactly is Arbala located?
Well, we pronounce it Arbela.
Okay.
And I don't know how it got that name, but it's south of Sulphur Springs, and not too far from Greenville. Greenville, I guess, is the biggest
town nearby.
But then Sulphur Springs, so that's the county seat.
Oh, I see. Okay. Well, we have a general location there. Tell us about your family, brothers, sisters.
Okay, I have one sister living, and I have one brother dead and one sister dead. They both died when they were very young in an accident. But my sister to this day lives on the farm I grew up on.
Oh, how awesome. So you get to go back.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
Oh, wonderful. I've read that you were left a widow in Chicago with 2 young children, returning to Texas where you attended school. Where did you go to school?
Well, my first degree is from Texas Women's University. That's when I was very young. I graduated in '51 from there. Then I went to Chicago, lived 17 years until my husband's death. And then we moved back. The children and I moved back to Sulphur Springs, as a matter of fact. We didn't get all the way back to the farm. And so that's where that's how I got back. And and East Texas, you asked me about school. So then I was close to East Texas State, now Texas A&M Commerce, and that's where I went. I started a master's, and I stayed on and got my doctorate there also.
How wonderful that you were so persistent. Was English your major then?
Yes, the second time. The first time I had majored in journalism years ago, but I'd never practiced it.
Oh, wonderful. I know you taught English at Richland College in Dallas, where you were teaching when you retired?
Yes.
And how long were you there?
I was at Richland 20 years, and before that I had taught in Chicago, 4th and 5th grades, and half a year in a high school at Yantis after I moved back to Texas, but then 20 years at Richland. And some classes while I was doing graduate studies at East Texas State.
I have to ask you this, in the versatility of the age group, which did you really prefer?
You mean in going to school?
I mean in your teaching, the lower grades are your college classes.
I love 4th and 5th grades. I didn't set well in high school, but college I liked very much, and so that's where I settled down. But I love the little ones in 5th grade.
I've become very familiar with Richland College in the last 3 or 4 years because I have a grandson who goes there.
Very good.
So that's wonderful. Okay, you remarried in 1977.
Yes.
And you now live in Richardson. We talked. I believe you also spend a lot of time in Angel Fire, New Mexico. Do you have a home there?
Yes, we do.
Oh.
We have a little house there, and we go fairly often. Love the mountains and the valley.
I know it's gorgeous country up in the mountains like that, so I envy you that. I really do. When did you first become interested in poetry?
You know, I was a late bloomer in poetry, very late. It wasn't until after I had retired and written the memoir that I got into it seriously. And so I would say not more than 5 or 6 years ago, perhaps.
Oh, how awesome, because this lady wins a lot in competitions, let me tell you. Do you write every day?
No, I'm sorry to say I don't.
Just when it comes to you?
When I have time and when I can work it in. Now I've started on a biography, though, and so that's just consuming my time, and I try to do something on that every day.
I see. Well, in your different aspects of writing, do you have a special place that you like to go to write, a place in your house or an office, or that is just your private space to write?
Oh, I would like that more than anything, but I guess like so many people I know, they really don't have their own space. But, I mean, you have your space, but sometimes your husband or other people say, oh, just a minute, or my husband says, I miss you. And so he comes in and sits, and it's so sweet, but for writers, that's sort of a distraction. Oh, he may see this, so.
That,
yes.
Okay, okay. Have you ever published a book of your poetry?
No, I haven't, but with some other poets, our book is coming out soon. We call ourselves the Brown Bag Poets.
And I've heard about you.
I promised I'd get a line in for us. The book is going to the printer. We're right down to the end, and unless the title is changed at the last moment, it's Swimming to the Moon. And there's 7 of us. We meet and critique each other's poetry, and then the book grew out of that. Then aside from that, I have my own manuscript and I've been sending it out occasionally. It was just ready at the January of this year, and so I'm going to give it a whole year before I.
You don't think you might enter it in the Econ manuscript competition?
I think I might. I think I would like to.
I would think that would be wonderful.
It's tough competition, but
yes,
you have to try the tough ones too.
To see where you can go with it. I want to mention that Dr. Cimarolli's poetry has been published in numerous anthologies and journals, including A Galaxy of Verse, Lucidity, Sojourn, Mooncrossed, Ilya's Honey, and several of editions of New Texas, which is published by Mary Hardin Baylor at Belton.
Yes, it was for a while.
As well as numerous books of the year published by the Poetry Society of Texas. In 2003, Texas A&M University Press at College Station published your memoir, The Bootlegger's Other Daughter.
Yes.
And I want to thank you for sending me a copy. I could not put it down. I was so fascinated to be reminded of my growing years, which incidentally, I grew up near Greenville. So that's another thing there. But it was very interesting. The book was also a PEN finalist in 2004. That's exciting. How and why did you decide on this particular project?
Before I answer that, could I tell you how it got to be a PEN finalist?
Oh,
because
yes.
I think that was it had been out for like a whole year about, and the flurry had sort of died down. It never generated a great deal of publicity because I didn't have an agent and I didn't have a publicist. But I did have a good publisher that had a good distribution system. And so it got many places that I didn't even know about. And one day the telephone rang, and a woman on the other end said, I'm calling for PEN in New York City, and I want to tell you that your book is a finalist for the Martha Albron Award for memoir. It was first book award. And I said, you're kidding. New York City? And her name is Lily Tuck, the woman who told me about it, and I'd heard of her, and she's quite a well-known author. And it was just the most interesting conversation. But first I said, "Are you from Texas?" Because I hadn't thought it would have an audience outside of Texas. And she said, "Oh, I live in New York City, but I'm originally from Paris, France." And this is after she had congratulated me profusely and telling me how much she'd enjoyed it. And I thought, gee, someone from Paris, France, who understands about East Texas.
Oh, how exciting.
I was pleased.
And I want to mention right away that if any of you are interested in obtaining this book, you can call the number before or after the program listed on your screen, or the email address, and I will be sure and put you in touch with Dr. Cimarolli.
Thank you.
And now, okay, back to why you decided on doing this project.
Well, after I had retired, I just had to do something right away, because at Richland I'd had 5 classes for year after year, and I was so keyed to working very hard. English classes, you know, and different preparations and tons of papers to grade. And I just wanted to do something, and I wanted to do something constructive, and I'd always wanted to write. And that's how I started, and I just started naturally with this, thinking at first that they would just be fragments. And I called it fragments at first and just did little pieces. And I got so much response from it, I thought, well, my goodness, I'll keep on. And it just, one thing led to another, and finally it just told me it wanted to be a book. And it was about twice the size I wound up with finally, because after I did find a publisher, we trimmed it, you know how that goes.
Well, I also, too, when I was talking to one of our members, I believe you know Dr. Frances Neidhart.
Oh, yes.
She had nothing but the highest praise for the book, so that was an incentive to read it through, and I have it loaned out right now, and they're waiting in line to read it. Anyway, I have heard that you are an avid reader. Who is your favorite author?
Well, let's see, I have so many. Catherine Ann Porter for a long time was my favorite writer. You know, she's a Texas short story writer with national acclaim. I didn't like her novel as much as her short stories, because they're so perfect, they're just perfect. And her one novel that everybody's familiar with is Ship of Fools, but somehow it doesn't, I loved her short stories because they're so good. Eudora Welty, about the same era as Catherine Ann Porter, and she's another just absolute master like her. For present day writers, I like Annie Proulx very much. She's a powerful, strong writer. Brokeback Mountain, they built that movie from her short story. And let's see, for poetry, I started out liking Emily Dickinson best. She was my favorite for a long time. And then I like other poets. Mary Carr is a poet, a recent poet that I like, and Naomi Nye, and just so many. I can't name them
I know,
all.
and when
Wendy
someone asked you,
DeMette.
Wendy DeMette, we had the pleasure of having her as our guest previously. I believe she's one of your brown bag ladies.
Yes, and she is absolutely superb.
It has been said often in this realm of circle of poets that she can say more with less words than any poet we know.
Yes.
She's absolutely wonderful. Has any one poet in particular been of an inspiration to you?
Oh, well, maybe Emily Dickinson. Maybe so, because
I can see you being a fan of Emily Dickinson.
I used to do an impersonation of Emily from Richland. I had the dress and the whole thing, a little chair, a little table that was so old. I had fun.
Oh, yes, that is. I know you're a member of the Poetry Society of Texas and the National Federation of State Poetry Societies. Are there other organizations, poetry organizations that you belong to?
No.
No, just those. That's okay. How important do you believe it is to belong to such organizations?
Well, the Texas Poetry Society, and also, of course, the National, but Texas in particular for me has been really a strong motivator because they pay attention to you. And I love the meetings because you get to read occasionally. And it's not just all business, people participate. And that's been a real inspiration. For one thing, the monthly expectations, you can actually enter a poem when you're a member once a month for no entry fee. And it just is an encouragement to just keep, and after you start doing it, you begin to compete. I mean, you feel like, I need to come up with one.
And keep writing. And,
Yes.
and it encourages you to write more.
Oh, yes.
Yes. As an award-winning poet, what advice do you have for anyone wishing to enter poetry competitions?
This is assuming they're already a poetry, they're already into it and already.
Well, let's just hope that we have a lot of would-be poets, and I think those are probably the ones
we need
to encourage.
Good. Then those are the people I'm very interested in. I mean, yes, start. I was a would-be for a long time, and I just didn't put pencil to paper. I was a would-be writer before the Bootlegger's Other Daughter, just would-be. I didn't know I could really do it, I think, but I wanted to in my head, and so I would fantasize that I was that. But until you put pencil to paper, and you actually get into the flow of it, get the feel of it, I think you're not really there. But once you start, things open up that you had no idea you had inside you. In my memoir, I had no idea all that was lurking inside. I just thought I'd start with a memory or two, and then that's how it built. Because I promise you, would-be writer, I'll talk to would-be writer. If you it's there. All you have to do is sit down with pencil and paper and get your hand in motion and start.
Good advice.
Yeah.
Good advice.
Yeah.
Thank you for staying with us now as we go to the meeting of the Texoma Poetry Society, where Dr. Mary Cimarolli will be sharing some of her own poetry with us. Thank you.
Thank you, Frances. And I'm very happy to be here. I was telling Leona that ordinarily I like to walk around, even when I taught at Richland College, I never stood behind the podium because that separated me from the students, and I was always right out touching them. But this really comes in handy, and I appreciate it because my voice is going. But I think I can make it through okay, and this microphone makes it very easy for me, so I appreciate that. Frances gave such a good introduction to the book, to the Bootlegger's Other Daughter, that I'll go ahead and talk about that for just a second. I brought some today because my poetry book isn't out yet, and this is the soft cover. It retails for $15.95, but today $10. I'll give it to you for my price. And the hardback, how much that was. Oh, here it is. 20. This is the hardback. I was very happy when it came out in paperback, though, because that mentions the PEN Award on the back, because that circulation about a year, and people have had a chance, to look at it and make some judgment. And I was telling Leona earlier that I was so surprised when I got a call from New York one day because the book had been out for a year, and the woman said, this is Lily Tuck from Penn in New York. And I thought it was a big joke because I hadn't realized that one great advantage of being with Texas A&M is that they have wonderful distribution. And so the book, got a good distribution anyway. And she said, no, I'm very serious. And then she was praising the book. And I said, "Are you from Texas?" Because I thought perhaps that was what she had seen in it. And she said, "No, I'm from Paris, France, but I live in New York City now." And I thought, "Oh, wow, that was really heady to me." And my little book got into her hands. Anyway, and my poetry book, the one I'm hoping that I'm shopping around now, is called at this point, A Hopeful Odyssey. I have taken some of the poems out, and I thought I would read from that today. I also need to tell you about one other book that will come out very soon. I'm only a part writer for that book. I'm one of 7 poets. We call ourselves the Brown Baggers, and we meet toward the last Friday of each month, and we critique each other's poems. You have to have a poem. You have to bring one. First, we eat lunch, and we actually bring it in brown bags. Hostess usually has a little dessert, maybe a drink, soda, and then we critique all the rest of the afternoon. And somebody got the idea, I'm not sure it was me, but someone said, let's compile some of the poems into a book. And so now that's already on it, is at the printer now and ready for the blue lining. And that book is called Swimming to the Moon. And a couple people I know have been here, and maybe 3 already, Winnie DeMette and Linda Bay. I don't know if Linda's been here yet, but Marilyn Stacy. And and there's 7 of us all together. So, but my book is going to be called A Hopeful Odyssey. And I was telling Leona earlier, I'm too close to the microphone, thank you. I came into poetry writing rather late. Well, actually, I didn't do any creative writing until after I retired. I didn't do much. And then poetry, I guess I've been writing about 6 years, off and on. And I like it very much. But for me, it's very hard work. I hear some people say that it really isn't a great deal of work to them, that they do it just for enjoyment. Well, I enjoy the getting thought down, and I really enjoy when I finally get it right. But from here to there is quite a lot of work for me till I really consider it finished. But it's worthwhile. It makes you feel so good when you get there. I'll go ahead and start with A Seasoned Love, the one in your little paper. I'll start with that. It's my husband's favorite. A seasoned love. How is it that you love me still when all my spring has gone and winter hovers near? When lie and song and speech cease to enthrall. How long ago we walked this way, my dear. We weathered hail and storm, within, without, gave up, then tried again to see it through. We've laughed, lived well, lost some, but gained no doubt, and from it all a quiet strength we drew. Now from the summit we, my love, can see there is no way to view that which awaits, nor know what breathes beyond the purple lea, or if there is a grand design of fate. But this I know, my dear, while this shall last, we two, one flesh, our lot forever cast. Emily Dickinson is a great favorite of mine. And to try to imitate such a master, I think, I have to be sort of cheeky to take that on. But I thought I would try with this one, and as close as I could ever get. I call it Through the Seasons. Green as the Irish Sea, fresh like a newborn coat, tender as a sweet pea, spring streaks, lightning bolt, dry as an old corn shuck, hot like a harsh south wind, unwelcome as bad luck, summer rounds the bend. Crisp like a bare brown lawn, gold as a harvest horn, hail rosy-fingered dawn, autumn salutes morn. Formal as ice-carved art, cloaked in a snowflake gown, a creaky mule-drawn cart, winter hunkers down. Oh, you don't need to do that. I call this one that I'm about to read Ode to Sarah in the Summertime. And I actually have a picture.